The first time Captain Jack Miller saw alien technology, he laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he couldn't believe how incredibly inefficient it was. They built an entire defense system around particle beams, he reported back to Earth Command, studying the holographic projection of the Arkesh battlecruiser. Energy-intensive, massive coolant requirements, and all for what? To punch a hole through something? Jack had spent 20 years in the United Earth Defense Force. Before that, he'd been a history professor specializing in ancient weapons development. The irony wasn't lost on him that mankind's oldest combat solution, kinetic energy, remained its most efficient. Command wants immediate analysis, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Tom Reed, said, passing him a datapad. The diplomatic corps is still attempting communication, but after they blew up our outpost on Europa, Jack nodded grimly. The Arkesh made their position clear. The scout ship Hermes had been deployed after the Europa incident to gather intelligence on the alien fleet now orbiting Saturn. Humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence had been disappointingly predictable. They came, they saw, they attacked. No demands, no communication, just the obliteration of a research station housing 300 people. Their hull material is fascinating, Dr. Helen Ward, the ship's materials specialist, pointed out. Look at these scans. It's a crystalline lattice structure that seems to diffuse energy weapons incredibly well. Jack studied the readings. But what about kinetic impacts? Helen shrugged. Hard to say. Based on density readings, I'd guess it's surprisingly brittle against physical force. They've clearly evolved defenses against their own weapon systems. Makes sense, Tom added. You develop countermeasures against what you know. If they've been fighting with energy weapons for thousands of years, Jack's communication panel chimed. Captain, Command is requesting your tactical assessment. He took a deep breath and activated the secure channel. Admiral Davis's weathered face appeared on screen. Miller, what are we looking at? Sir, the Arkesh fleet consists of 17 vessels ranging from frigate to dreadnought class. Their weapons are exclusively energy-based. Particle beams, plasma projectors, something resembling a directed EMP. Their defenses appear specifically designed to counter these same weapons. Vulnerabilities? Jack allowed himself a small smile. Everything, sir. Their ships are built for speed and energy projection, not to withstand physical impacts. Our railgun platforms could tear through them like tissue paper. The Admiral's expression remained grim. You're certain? As certain as I can be without firing a shot, sir. Their entire military doctrine seems built around energy weapons. Their engines, power distribution, hull composition, it's all optimized for that kind of warfare. They've never encountered a species that thinks like us, Helen interjected. They've never needed to defend against physical projectiles. Admiral Davis nodded slowly. Captain Miller, return to Earth immediately. We need your full report before we commit our defense fleet. As the Hermes turned back toward home, Jack couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of dread and confidence. Humanity had spent millennia perfecting the art of killing each other with kinetic weapons. Now, that bloody history might be their salvation against a technologically superior foe who had never learned the elegant simplicity of throwing something very hard and very fast at their enemy. They don't understand what they've provoked, he murmured to himself, watching the alien fleet shrink in the distance. They have no idea what's coming. The Unified Earth Defense Council meeting stretched into its 5th hour as Jack delivered his findings. Military leaders from every nation sat in grim silence as holographic projections of the Arkesh vessels rotated above the central table. In conclusion, Jack said, despite their technological advancement, the Arkesh appear fundamentally unprepared for our methods of warfare. Their entire military doctrine is energy-based. We've analyzed their ship movements, and there's no evidence they even use guided missiles, let alone mass drivers or railguns. General Wilson, the grizzled head of the North American Defense Command, leaned forward. You're telling me these aliens traveled across the stars, wiped out Europa without breaking a sweat, and yet they've never thought to throw a rock real fast? It seems impossible, Dr. Ward admitted, but the evidence supports it. Their civilization likely evolved energy weapons early and never deviated. Their ships show no point defense systems for intercepting physical projectiles. Their hulls would shatter under kinetic impacts. Defense Minister Patel from the Indian coalition tapped her fingers thoughtfully. Specialist blind spots. They've optimized for one type of warfare and never encountered an alternative. Exactly, Jack confirmed. It's like bringing a flamethrower to fight someone with a sniper rifle. Advanced, yes, but irrelevant if they can't hit us from a distance. Our weapons can. The room fell silent as Earth Fleet Admiral Zhao stood. Captain Miller, your recommendation? Jack straightened. A rapid strike, sir. Deploy our railgun platforms in stealth mode. Standard tungsten rods accelerated to 15% light speed. At that velocity, each impact would deliver the energy equivalent of a small nuclear device. No radiation, no fallout, just pure kinetic energy. And, if you're wrong, President Garcia asked quietly, if they have defenses we haven't detected, then we'll know within seconds of the first salvo, Jack replied honestly. But if I'm right, we could disable their entire fleet before they realize they're under attack. Admiral Zhao nodded slowly. We lost 300 people on Europa. The Arkesh have positioned themselves around Saturn, which means they'll reach Earth in 2 weeks at their current velocity. We can't afford to wait. The Defense Council voted unanimously. Operation Sledgehammer would commence in 24 hours. Back aboard the command vessel Thermopylae, Jack stared at the tactical display showing the Arkesh fleet in neat formation. For all their technological prowess, they were so predictable, so methodical. Human fleets would never arrange themselves with such perfect symmetry, too easy to target. Railgun platforms achieving optimal positions, Tom reported. All 8 are in place, powered down to minimal signatures. The Arkesh haven't changed course? No, Captain. No indication they've detected our platforms. Jack took a deep breath. The platforms had been designed as Earth's last line of defense, orbital, weapons capable of accelerating 20-ton tungsten rods to velocities that transformed them into world-ending weapons. They'd never been used in actual combat. Firing solutions uploaded, the weapons officer announced. Targeting their largest vessel and radiating outward. Clean shots on all 17 targets. Jack looked at the communication display showing Admiral Zhao. With a simple nod from the Admiral, Jack gave the order. Execute Operation Sledgehammer. In the silence of space, 8 railgun platforms awoke, magnetic accelerators charging with enough energy to power small cities. Then, silent and invisible, the first salvos of humanity's counterattack were launched toward the unsuspecting alien fleet. Humanity's first interstellar battle lasted exactly 8 minutes and 43 seconds. From the observation deck of the Thermopylae, Jack watched as the initial tungsten rods, nearly invisible except for the faint distortion they created against the backdrop of stars, reached their targets. The alien dreadnought, an enormous vessel that had likely required centuries to build, simply came apart. There was no explosion, no dramatic fireball, just structural failure as the kinetic projectile, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, transferred its energy into the hull. Direct hit, Tom announced, his voice tight with tension. Target 1, destroyed. The rest of the impacts followed in quick succession. The Arkesh fleet, arranged in their perfect geometric formation, might as well have painted bullseyes on themselves. 12 smaller vessels shattered under the onslaught of humanity's primitive but devastatingly effective weapons. They're attempting to return fire, the sensor operator reported. Energy signatures building in their surviving ships. Jack nodded grimly. Initiate second salvo. Before the Arkesh could bring their sophisticated energy weapons to bear, another wave of hypersonic projectiles tore through space. This time the aliens attempted evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. They'd never designed their ships for the kind of rapid acceleration needed to dodge a weapon moving at such velocity. All targets neutralized, Tom finally reported. Confirming. Yes, all 17 Arkesh vessels have been destroyed or disabled. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Humanity had just won its first interstellar war with technology that was, by comparison, prehistoric. Captain, the communications officer called out. We're detecting automated distress signals from 3 of the damaged vessels. Life support appears intact in portions of their ships. Jack turned to Admiral Zhao's holographic projection. Orders, sir? Rescue operations, the Admiral replied without hesitation. Dispatch teams to secure survivors. We need to understand who we're dealing with. 12 hours later, Jack led the first boarding party onto the least damaged Arkesh vessel. The alien ship's interior was a marvel of engineering. Flowing lines, materials that seemed to respond to touch, and lighting that adjusted automatically to their presence. The first Arkesh they encountered was injured, but alive. The alien was taller than a human, with 4 arms and a bony exoskeleton covered in something resembling fine scales. Its eyes, 3 of them, widened at the sight of the boarding party. Dr. Liam Dixon, the xenolinguistics specialist, activated the translation device they'd hastily assembled using the Arkesh's own communication signals. "We mean you no harm," Dixon stated clearly. "We are providing medical assistance." The alien responded with a series of clicks and whistles that the translator struggled to process. How primitive projectiles. Impossible. Thousands of years beyond. Jack stepped forward. "Why did you attack our outpost on Europa?" The translation came back clearer this time. "Resource claim. Standard procedure. Inferior technology indicates inferior species. No resistance expected." Jack exchanged glances with his team. "A misunderstanding, then." The alien's 3 eyes blinked in what might have been confusion. "Your weapons? Not possible. Energy signatures minimal. No advanced technology detected." "Sometimes," Jack replied as medics moved to treat the injured alien. "The oldest solutions are still the best ones." In the coming days, as more survivors were rescued and communication improved, the extent of the Arkesh's miscalculation became clear. They were part of a vast interstellar empire that had never encountered resistance from emerging species. Their civilization had indeed developed energy weapons early, and built their entire military doctrine around increasingly sophisticated variations of the same technology. The concept of accelerating physical objects as weapons had been abandoned millennia ago as inefficient and primitive. A technological dead end. They had never imagined that a species would perfect such an obsolete approach to warfare. As Jack reported to Earth Command, humanity's greatest advantage had been precisely what the Arkesh considered our greatest weakness: our brutal, efficient simplicity. "They call themselves the Arkesh Dominion," Ambassador Kate Porter explained to the United Earth Defense Council. "Their territory spans 27 star systems, and they've encountered 14 other spacefaring species before us. 6 weeks had passed since Operation Sledgehammer. In that time, diplomatic channels had been established with the Arkesh, facilitated by the survivors from the battle at Saturn. Earth now hosted an Arkesh delegation, while human representatives had been invited to the nearest Arkesh colony world." "And all 14 of these species surrendered without a fight?" President Garcia asked. "Not exactly," Kate replied. "Most were simply absorbed. The Arkesh have a standardized procedure for incorporating emerging technological species into their dominion. They stage a limited military demonstration, like the attack on Europa, followed by terms of integration." Jack, recently promoted to admiral for his role in the decisive victory, couldn't help but interject. "And none of these species thought to just throw something at them really fast?" "According to their historical records, no," Kate said with a hint of incredulity. "The Arkesh evolutionary path led them to develop directed energy manipulation before they even discovered metallurgy. Their mathematical models proved that kinetic weapons were inefficient compared to energy projection, so they never seriously developed them." Defense Minister Patel frowned. "And every species they encountered followed the same technological path?" "Not initially," Kate clarified. "But the Arkesh have been selectively absorbing civilizations for over 12,000 years. They actively seek out species with compatible technological development, ones focused on energy manipulation rather than physical mechanics. Those that don't fit their pattern are simply avoided until their technology matures." "They've been cherry-picking," Jack realized. "Only approaching civilizations that followed their technological paradigm." "Precisely," Kate confirmed. "Until they encountered us. Humans are the first species they've met who mastered kinetic weapons before, developing the energy projection systems they consider fundamental. They had no framework for dealing with our approach." Jack remembered the bewilderment in the Arkesh survivors' eyes. They thought we were primitives. Their scans of Earth detected no significant energy weapon signatures, minimal antimatter production, and no evidence of the directed plasma technology they consider basic. By their metrics, we were barely spacefaring. General Wilson snorted. So they brought a laser to a railgun fight. A more sophisticated analogy than you might think, Kate replied. The Arkesh High Command has requested a formal alliance, rather than integration. We're the first species they've offered this to in 8,000 years. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Why? Admiral Zhao asked directly. Fear, Kate said simply. And pragmatism. Our weaponry represents an entirely different evolutionary path of warfare, one they have no defense against. When I showed their military advisors the specifications of our electromagnetic railguns, they thought there was a translation error. The idea of accelerating physical projectiles to relativistic speeds strikes them as elegant in its brutality. Jack studied the holographic projections of Arkesh technology. They've never had to develop point defense systems against physical projectiles. Their entire defensive doctrine is based on energy absorption and deflection, which makes us either valuable allies or existential threats, President Garcia noted. What are the terms of this alliance? Technology exchange, Kate replied. They offer their energy projection and manipulation systems. We provide our kinetic weapons technology. There's also territorial non-aggression clauses and mutual defense provisions. The council deliberated for hours before reaching their decision. Earth would accept the alliance, but with caution and extensive safeguards. As the meeting adjourned, Jack found himself walking alongside Kate in the corridor outside. Do you think they're trustworthy? He asked quietly. Kate considered this. I think they're genuinely terrified of what humanity represents. Their entire civilization is built on the assumption that technological evolution follows a predictable path. We've upended 12,000 years of their understanding. Good, Jack said. A little fear is healthy in interstellar relations. There's something else, Kate added. When I was on their colony world, their historians showed me records of a species they encountered briefly about 3,000 years ago. A species they avoided because their technology was undeveloped in energy projection. Another like us? Possibly. The Arkesh never established diplomatic relations. They simply noted the location and moved on, planning to return when this species had matured. Jack felt a chill. Where? A star system about 40 light-years from here. The Arkesh called them potential but primitive. They were using chemical rockets at the time. And now? Kate smiled thinly. Unknown. The Arkesh never went back. Jack nodded slowly. I think we should pay them a visit. The exploratory vessel Magellan emerged from its final jump point on the edge of the Tau Ceti system. Captain Mark Evans, handpicked by Admiral Miller for this mission, studied the sensor readings with intense interest. Confirming artificial structures in orbit around the fourth planet, his science officer reported. Significant industrial activity detected. This was humanity's first contact mission since the Arkesh incident. The mysterious species the Arkesh had dismissed as primitive 3 millennia ago had apparently survived and thrived. Whether they would be allies or adversaries remained to be seen. Any response to our approach? Mark asked. Nothing yet, Captain. But they must have detected us by now. Mark nodded. The Magellan had been designed as a diplomatic vessel, but it carried an impressive array of the kinetic weapons that had proven so effective against the Arkesh. Earth wasn't taking chances with first contact scenarios anymore. Captain, the communications officer called out suddenly, we're receiving a transmission, tight beam, directed specifically at us. Put it through. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a being that appeared remarkably similar to humans, though with distinct differences. Slightly larger eyes, a ridged forehead, and skin with a bluish undertone. Greetings, visitors, the alien said in perfect English. Mark blinked in surprise. You speak our language? The alien's expression shifted in what might have been amusement. We've been monitoring your transmissions for over a century. Your radio bubble reached us long before your ship did. I am Director Varen of the Petron Confederation. Mark recovered quickly. Captain Mark Evans of the Earth vessel Magellan. We come in peace and friendship. As do most who make first contact, Varen replied with what seemed like dry humor. Though the Arkesh warships orbiting your Saturn suggested otherwise, we observed that conflict with great interest. Mark stiffened. You are watching us? Of course. We maintain observation posts throughout this sector of the galaxy. The Arkesh have been a concern of ours for many generations. The implications washed over Mark like a cold wave. This species, the Petrans, had been monitoring Earth without detection. Their technology was clearly far more advanced than it had been when the Arkesh dismissed them. Director Varen, Mark said carefully. The Arkesh records indicated your people were using chemical rockets when they discovered you 3,000 years ago. Varen's expression darkened. A deliberate deception on our part. When the Arkesh scout ships arrived in our system, our ancestors detected their scans. They quickly understood the Arkesh were cataloging technology signatures. So you hid your true capabilities? Precisely. Our ancestors had already developed rudimentary gravity manipulation by then, but they maintained the appearance of a much more primitive civilization. The Arkesh departed, apparently planning to return when we had matured, according to their narrow technological pathway. Mark felt a chill run down his spine. You've been hiding for 3,000 years? Not hiding. Preparing. The Arkesh pattern of discovery and absorption was clear to our xenoanthropologists even then. We chose to develop our technology along multiple paths simultaneously. Energy projection systems like theirs, but also gravity manipulation, kinetic weapons like yours, and several other approaches. Mark slowly began to understand the magnitude of what he was hearing. You've been watching other species fall to the Arkesh all this time? Varen's expression was solemn. We lacked the numbers to challenge the Dominion directly. The Arkesh control 27 systems, each heavily populated. Our Confederation spans only 8 systems with a fraction of their population. We needed allies who could think differently. Like humans. Exactly like humans, Varen confirmed. Your victory against their fleet was remarkable. Simple, elegant, devastating. You accomplished with primitive kinetic weapons what our most advanced systems might have struggled to achieve. Mark felt a surge of pride followed quickly by suspicion. Why reveal yourselves to us now? Because the situation has changed, Varen replied. The Arkesh have offered you an alliance, something unprecedented in their history. They fear you, Captain Evans. They fear what you represent, a different path of technological evolution that renders their defenses obsolete. And you want to ensure we don't become their allies? Mark guessed. We want to ensure you understand what such an alliance truly means, Varen corrected. The Arkesh do not consider other species equals, only potential subjects or existential threats. If they cannot conquer you today, they will learn from you, adapt, and return in a generation. Mark considered this carefully. You're proposing an alternative alliance. I am proposing a meeting, Varen responded, between your leaders and the Petran Confederation Council. There is much we can learn from each other, and much we can accomplish together. As the Magellan transmitted this unexpected development back to Earth, Mark couldn't help but reflect on the strange irony. Humanity had blundered into interstellar politics with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer, yet somehow had managed to attract the attention of not one, but 2 advanced civilizations. One that had underestimated them, and another that had apparently been waiting for them all along. The galaxy, it seemed, was far more complex than anyone on Earth had imagined. They call it the Concordance Initiative, Admiral Jack Miller explained to the Defense Council, pointing to the holographic display showing the proposed alliance structure. The Petrans have been quietly building a coalition of species who developed outside the Arkesh technological paradigm. 6 months had passed since the Magellan's discovery of the Petran Confederation. In that time, diplomatic relations had progressed rapidly. The Petrans had revealed that humanity wasn't the only civilization that had been deemed primitive by the Arkesh, only to develop along unexpected technological paths. How many species are involved? President Garcia asked. 7 confirmed, including ourselves and the Petrans, Jack replied. Each brings unique technological approaches and military doctrines. The Durrani, for instance, specialized in stealth technology so advanced that they've maintained settlements in 3 Arkesh-controlled systems without detection. General Wilson whistled, hiding right under their noses. The Arkesh technological blindness isn't limited to weapon systems, Dr. Ward added. Their entire scientific development has been remarkably linear, brilliant within their chosen fields, but oblivious to alternative approaches. Defense Minister Patel frowned. And how do we know the Petrans aren't simply offering us the same arrangement as the Arkesh, but with different terms? We could be trading one potential overlord for another. It was a fair question. Earth's sudden elevation to a pivotal position in galactic politics had left many leaders suspicious of both the Arkesh and Petron offers. The Petrons have provided full access to their historical records, Ambassador Porter replied. Unlike the Arkesh, who selectively edited their history of species absorption, the Petrons have been transparent about their confederacy structure. Each member maintains sovereignty and contributes based on their technological strengths. Jack nodded. More importantly, they've shared intelligence on Arkesh fleet movements that confirms our suspicions. Despite their alliance offer, the Arkesh have been retrofitting their vessels with primitive but effective kinetic shields. They're adapting to our weaponry faster than they admitted. President Garcia's expression darkened. They're preparing for a potential conflict while negotiating in bad faith. Classic hedging strategy, General Wilson noted. Smile at the diplomatic table while building bigger guns under it. Jack brought up another display showing Arkesh fleet formations near the edge of their territory. The Petrons have been monitoring this buildup for months. The Arkesh are consolidating forces here, within strike range of 3 systems, including Earth. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. What exactly are you proposing, Admiral? The President finally asked. A preemptive demonstration, Jack replied carefully. Not an attack, but a show of force that leaves no doubt about our capabilities and alliances. Elaborate. Jack gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show a tactical plan. Operation Long Shadow. A joint Earth-Petron task force would deploy to this position, the edge of Arkesh territory, but outside their claimed space. We would conduct visible weapons tests of our combined technologies. Saber rattling, Defense Minister Patel observed. Controlled saber rattling, Jack corrected. The Petrons have developed a fascinating hybrid technology. Kinetic projectiles enhanced with their gravity manipulation systems. The destructive potential is significant. The technical specifications appeared on screen, causing several council members to lean forward in surprise. These yield calculations can't be correct, General Wilson said. They are, Dr. Ward confirmed. The Petrons can locally increase the mass of our standard tungsten rods by a factor of 50 at the moment of impact. A single projectile could potentially shatter a small moon. President Garcia studied the proposal for a long moment. And you believe this demonstration would deter the Arkesh? I believe it would clarify the actual balance of power, Jack replied. The Arkesh respect strength above all else. Their entire history shows they only deal fairly with species they cannot easily defeat. After hours of debate, the Council approved Operation Long Shadow with certain modifications. The demonstration would proceed, but Earth would simultaneously maintain diplomatic channels with the Arkesh. 3 weeks later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Thermopylae, now redesignated as the flagship of Earth's contribution to the Joint Task Force. Alongside it flew 6 Petran vessels of a design he still found breathtaking, organic-looking ships that seemed to flow through space rather than simply move through it. Arkesh sensor platforms have detected us, Commander Laura Hayes reported. They're dispatching observer vessels, Jack nodded. Exactly as expected. Are the test platforms in position? Yes, Admiral. The target asteroid has been scanned and cleared. No life forms, no valuable minerals, just a big rock in empty space. Excellent. Jack opened a channel to Captain Torin, his Petron counterpart. Captain, are your gravity enhancers synchronized with our launch systems? The Petran's face appeared on screen. Confirmed, Admiral Miller. Enhancement fields are calibrated and ready. I must say, this collaboration has been remarkably efficient. Jack smiled. Turns out humans and Petrons think alike in many ways. Perhaps that's why the Arkesh found both our species so unpredictable. Torin replied with what Jack had learned was the Petron equivalent of a grin. As the Arkesh observer vessels took position at a safe distance, Jack gave the order. Begin demonstration sequence. A single railgun platform detached from the Thermopylae, positioning itself with a clear firing solution on the asteroid, a tumbling rock roughly 5 kilometers in diameter. Platform ready, Admiral. Jack took a deep breath. Execute. The railgun fired a standard tungsten rod, accelerating it to 20% of light speed. As it approached the target, the Petron vessels activated their gravity manipulation field, momentarily, increasing the projectile's effective mass 50-fold. The impact was beyond spectacular. The asteroid didn't simply break apart. It vaporized, the kinetic energy converting its mass instantly into a rapidly expanding cloud of superheated particles. Silence fell across the bridge as sensor readings confirmed the complete destruction of the target. "Message sent," Jack said quietly. Within hours, the Arkesh High Command requested an emergency diplomatic conference. 5 years after Operation Long Shadow, Admiral Jack Miller stood at the observation window of Unity Station, watching ships from a dozen different species navigate the busy space lanes around Earth. The massive diplomatic and trade hub represented everything humanity had achieved since those first tense encounters with the Arkesh. "Admiring your handiwork?" a familiar voice asked. Jack turned to see Kate Porter, now serving as Earth's representative to the Galactic Concordance, the expanded alliance that had grown from the initial Earth-Petron agreement. "Just thinking about how quickly everything changed," he replied. 6 years ago we were alone in the universe, now look at us." Below them, a sleek Durrani stealth cruiser shimmered into visibility as it approached the station, while several Arkesh trading vessels maintained a respectful distance from the military craft. "The Arkesh trade delegation is requesting an audience," Kate said. "They have a new proposal regarding technology exchange." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Another one? That's the third this month." "They're persistent," Kate acknowledged. "This time they're offering advancements in their particle beam focusing technology in exchange for our latest hybrid kinetic gravitational weapon designs. The same technology they claimed was primitive and inefficient a few years ago," Jack noted with irony. "Amazing how perspective changes when you're on the wrong end of a railgun." The Arkesh Dominion had undergone significant internal changes since Operation Long Shadow. The demonstration of combined Earth-Petron military capabilities had sent shockwaves through their rigid hierarchical society. For the first time in thousands of years, the Arkesh were forced to reconsider their technological orthodoxy. "What's General Reed recommending?" Jack asked, referring to his former lieutenant, who now headed Earth's Military Technology Exchange Commission. "Limited sharing of older kinetic designs while we continue developing next-generation systems with the Petrons and Durrani," Kate replied. "The usual approach." Jack nodded approvingly. Earth had learned to balance openness with caution in its interstellar relations. The Arkesh were still potentially dangerous, but the formation of the Concordance had fundamentally altered the balance of power in this sector of the galaxy. "There's something else," Kate added. "The exploratory vessel Odyssey returned from the Beta Hydri system last night. They found another emerging civilization, pre-FTL but advancing quickly." Jack's interest piqued. "What's their technological development path?" "That's the interesting part. They appear to have followed yet another distinct evolutionary track, focused on biological technology rather than mechanical or energy-based systems. Their spacecraft are partially grown rather than built." "Fascinating," Jack murmured. "Have we made contact?" "Not yet. The Concordance Council is debating the approach. The Arkesh representatives are advocating for observation only, arguing that such a divergent technological approach makes them unpredictable." Jack couldn't help but laugh. "That's rich, coming from them." "Isn't it?" Kate agreed with a smile. "The Petrons suggested we lead the contact mission, given our recent experience as newcomers ourselves." As they walked through the station toward the council chambers, Jack reflected on humanity's strange journey. Earth had stumbled onto the galactic stage with weapons that seemed primitive by alien standards. Yet those same primitive approaches had fundamentally altered the power dynamics of interstellar civilization. "You know what the Petron historian told me last week?" Jack said. "He said that human military doctrine was the galactic equivalent of bringing a club to a laser fight, and winning." Kate laughed. "Well, it worked, didn't it?" "It did," Jack agreed. "But I think what really shocked the Arkesh wasn't just that we beat them with kinetic weapons. It was that we never stopped developing multiple technological paths simultaneously. We kept our options open." "Adaptability," Kate mused. "Perhaps that's humanity's greatest strength." As they entered the council chamber, representatives from 7 species rose in greeting, the founding members of the Concordance. The Arkesh delegation remained seated, but nodded respectfully. Progress, Jack thought, however small. The Petron Council leader, Varen, approached with the formal greeting they had established years ago, a blend of human handshake and Petron arm crossing. Admiral Miller, I'm pleased you could join us. We were just discussing the contact protocols for the Beta Hydri civilization. I understand they have a unique technological approach, Jack replied. Indeed, their biological technology could offer incredible advancements in medicine and sustainable engineering. Varen glanced toward the Arkesh delegation. Some find such differences threatening. Others see opportunity. Jack followed his gaze. And what do you see, Director Varen? I see the pattern that has emerged since humans joined the galactic community, Varen replied thoughtfully. Diversity breeds resilience. The Arkesh dominated for millennia because they enforced technological conformity. They absorbed species who thought like them and avoided those who didn't. Until they couldn't avoid us any longer, Jack noted. Precisely. And now, with the Concordance embracing multiple technological paths, Petran gravity manipulation, human kinetic expertise, Durrani stealth systems, and perhaps soon this new biological approach, we create something greater than any single species could achieve alone. As the council session began, Jack took his seat beside Kate. On the main display, images of the Beta Hydri civilization appeared. Strange, beautiful spacecraft that seemed to pulse with life as they orbited their homeworld. The question before the council, Varen announced, is how to approach this emerging civilization. Do we observe from afar, or do we extend the hand of friendship? Jack caught Kate's eye and smiled. 6 years ago, humanity had been alone in the universe, deemed primitives by the first aliens they encountered. Now they sat at the center of a growing alliance, helping to shape the future of interstellar relations. All because humans had never stopped throwing rocks. They'd just figured out how to throw them really, really fast. I vote for contact, Jack stated clearly. Let's welcome them to the stars. The end.